I'm here today with Elizabeth Joy Arnold, and you just finished writing When We Were Friends. And this is a mainstream novel, and I have to tell you, when I first started reading it, I felt like I was punched in the gut because the first part of the story, you hear all about the main character, Lainey, and when she was in high school, she lost her best friend. And when I say lost, what I actually mean is her best friend really turned on her. And I think we all know from our high school experiences that mean girl that really, even as adults, we can't necessarily get over maybe what they have done to us when we were in school.
Yeah, I mean, high school is a time when your emotions are all over the place, obviously, and everything affects you so much more. So your friendships are that much closer and that much more important. And being betrayed in the way Lainey was is obviously devastating and ends up affecting the rest of her life, and really battered her self-esteem. And this woman, she has really everything going for her in a way. She's talented, she's funny, she's intelligent, and really a great person, has a great personality, but she has no self-esteem, and that's her biggest issue when the story opens, because of what happened to her in high school. And yeah, she ended up, Sydney was kind of the ringleader, turning almost the entire school against Lainey. And after that, that really affected the rest of her life. She could have probably become something if she hadn't had that experience. And that's the kind of book that I love to write, is somebody who really has a lot of potential, but looking at how past events can shape who they turn into and what happens with their life, and that's what I did with Lainey.
Sydney's very dramatic. It's very all or nothing with her. She comes in and she kind of takes over all of the space in the room. And so she shows up on Lainey's doorstep and drops off, she has a very young daughter, and drops off her toddler and says, well, Lainey, can you just watch her tonight? And tells her this story about how she has an abusive ex and how they're going through, custody right now, and it's just a horrible situation. And of course Lainey agrees. Who wouldn't agree to take care of a child who's being abused? And then it just escalates from there. Lainey does take Jacqueline and for the night, or at least she thinks the night, and then she watches the television the next morning, and there she sees Sydney in the news saying, my daughter was abducted. Mm-hmm. Where do you go from there?
Yeah, well, that's the struggle. She's, Sydney had showed up at her door with bruises on her face. She said that her husband had been not just abusing her, but abusing the baby. And when she's changing Jacqueline, she sees that there were little cigarette burns on the baby's back. And she's terrified for Sydney, but she's also terrified for herself, for the baby. How can she possibly, Sydney's in trouble, but the baby is
totally vulnerable.
Totally, yeah. So, then she has to figure out what she's going to do. Does she go to the police and risk that the father's going to get the baby back? Or does she try to keep the baby at home, keep the baby private, and just wait for Sydney to figure out what to do? Sydney says, well, I have an idea. I have somebody who can help me. You just have to watch the baby for a few days. And then she doesn't hear from her for a while, and just really starts freaking out. Obviously, she's scared of the police finding her and accusing her of kidnapping. So she ends up taking the baby on the run, and the story goes on from there.
The story goes on from there. And we're talking, when she does take the baby, you've got a road trip. Like, she's trying to just kind of get away. There's no real destination in mind. Mm-hmm. And she ends up for several months on the road looking for a safe place, still talking with her own mother, who she leaves behind, talking with Sydney, trying to to find a way to make this right, which it looks like I said, it just escalates. It looks like there's just never going to be an answer. And in all of this, she really bonds with the baby. She starts to call her Molly. Just, they're hiding out. And her and this baby, they really end up forming such a strong attachment that it makes you really understand how much the baby really did need that safety. And did need somebody to watch over her. And it really, as a mom, it really breaks your heart to watch her, bond with this child, and in the back of your head think, how can this possibly end well? Right. She's on the run. She's being, accused of all these things, like literally the FBI are involved in this case. And yet she loves this baby so much and the baby loves her. How can this possibly be right?
And she starts thinking of the baby as her own, but knows that it's not, and knows that eventually she's going to have to give the baby up. And she starts coming up with all of these elaborate fantasies about what's going to happen. Her and Sydney and the baby will live together with her mother somehow.
Somehow. In Montana, maybe.
Right. And she can't imagine giving the baby up and going back to the life that she'd been in. She'd been stagnated for, decades, and now finally she was starting to live again and meeting a man, and
who is fantastic. I mean, they make a joke about him being a good Samaritan because they first meet when her car breaks down, and he's so giving and so helpful that it's hard not to just totally fall in love with him, because he really goes out of his way to make sure that Lainey has everything that she needs, and by extension making sure that the baby is really well taken care of. And it's just
and so there they are, they're becoming a family in Lainey's mind. It's her and the man who has taken them in, and their baby in a sense. And trying to figure out, she hasn't told this man who she really is, and that the baby
isn't. Or who the baby is, right.
That the baby isn't actually hers. So her trying to figure out, how is this possibly going to how am I ever going to tell him? Do I just, leave him a note and run, or will he ever possibly understand? And as the months go on, it gets worse and worse. How can she possibly
because they get closer and closer, and so every single day it becomes so hard for her, she's such an honest person, and she got wrapped up in these lies, and it seems like she can't stop. Like there's no end.
And it escalates. It gets more and more dangerous, but also on the other side, she's becoming happier and happier in a way, because she is living this fantasy life. It's what she always dreamed of when she was stuck taking care of her mother.
Yeah. Well, we all have something in common. Lainey, yourself, and me. We all are raising adopted children, or children that are not biologically ours. And I think that that's so interesting, because so oftentimes, you read about problems in bonding and things. Where I know when I adopted my son, and when you adopted your daughter, and when she starts taking care of Molly, it's just this instant love, and you see that, and I really liked that part about it, because like I said, the mom in me really identified with that idea of being able to start raising that child and forming that instant connection with them.
And it was really, for Lainey, it was as soon as she first got a chance to hold Molly. I think Molly patted her on the back, and she instantly fell in love with this baby, the way you do. And that it was exactly the same when we adopted Anna. We were there when she was born, and we were. I think I was the first to hold her, other than the doctors, and just as soon as she was put into my arms, I fell absolutely in love. And that's what happens. And feeling like this baby, even though you know that she didn't spend 9 months inside of you, she's yours regardless, just as much as she would have been. So the love is very real, and the love of an adopted mother is as deep and whole and pure as if we'd given birth to our children.
I could not agree more. And I think with that, like I have nowhere else to go, because that really kind of encapsulates the story, that you do see the love of a wonderful mother, who she's becoming the mother, and they just love each other so much, and
learning how to become a mother, which
yes,
of course we both had to do.
You had to do immediately.
Immediately, without without really having any warning, or not having enough warning anyway. And suddenly you're reading parenting books when you've got this baby in front of you and trying to figure out, how do you fit the diaper between these legs?
And the first night they have to spend in the car seat because you don't have your crib yet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Where is your next book? Does it also deal with motherhood, or are you going to branch out into another topic?
No, it's actually, the next book it's really a book about books. Or at least it relates to my love of books. It's a woman who, her husband disappears, and she doesn't know where he is, and she starts looking for information. He just writes a note saying, I'll be back. I have to leave. I'll be back soon, and then just doesn't try to call her. So she's looking around for information, and she finds this notebook that he's written, but it's in code, and she wants to figure out what it is that he's trying to say, and she finds out that it's a book that was using other books to encode the text. So she needs to find out what those other books are, and she goes back, and it turns out that he used books from their childhood. They grew up together. Their favorite books, and really the books that meant most in their lives as they were growing up. So she has to really go back through her memories in order to find out what those books were that he was using, and figure out what he was writing. So she finds out a lot about his past, things that she didn't know about his past, and things that they had both gone through together, but from his point of view. So in that, I got a chance to read a lot of my favorite books that I read when I was a child, from when I was a very young child, like The Little Princess, or, all my favorite, Secret Garden, up through high school and beyond, and just really, got to revisit because I adore books. I love reading, and really talk about the love of reading, and while they're solving out, she's solving this mystery about where her husband might be, and what might have happened in their past. She's also going through just talking about her love of reading, and the books that they read together, and what those books taught both of them about life. So it's been so much fun to write, and really, I love analyzing books, so it let me go back and analyze books and what those books have taught me myself.
When can we expect your next novel?
Was just talking to my editor about that about an hour ago. It will either be next summer or the following spring, or not this summer, the summer after, or the following spring. So.
Oh, fantastic. I can't wait, because I was an English major in college, so that I love to analyze stories and what they mean. The deeper meanings, right? Even with the kids' books, you can always find something more.
I wished I was an English major. I was always jealous of the English major. So.
Well, it was great talking with you today. I really want to thank you for coming down today, and I thoroughly enjoyed when we were friends, and I know that our readers will too.
Thank you so much.